I finished tearing down the 5.0 today, all the way. I was going to show what the inside of a old Ford V8 looks like. Talk a little bit about the technology. I'm not going to get super in depth, mostly because I have the block and the heads out on the back of the truck, and I don't have them here in the garage with me, and I don't want to pop the garage door open. But I did some inspection stuff, and I'm pretty satisfied. There's nothing beyond what I saw upon initially seeing the engine with the heads off. I had my initial concerns, and I'll show that because it's pretty gnarly. But I'm just going to show your basic old V8. It's a pretty simple setup. It doesn't take very long to take apart, and it doesn't take very long to put together. And you can make some pretty decent power with relatively cheap mods. You know, the cheapest engine that you're going to be able to build performance-wise is going to be a small block 350. I'm not personally a huge Chevy fan. I've had my fair share of them. I've had probably 7 different built Chevy off-road trucks, and they've had problems blowing them up. I usually limp home in the Fords at the very least. Obviously, this engine isn't doing so hot. You know, all engines blow up. A lot of it's maintenance. A lot of it's how it was driven. And it doesn't matter what brand you're in. If you don't take care of it and you drive it like an asshole, then it's going to blow up on you and it's not going to last. That's just life. This truck is going to be solely for off-road. So it's going to... I'm building this engine to handle some power. It's not going to see a ton of miles, but it's going to see heavy abuse for the miles it does take. That being said, there's a few modifications that I'm going to be making as far as the build that you would see on a race car, and it's going to basically relieve stress, and I'll go into that as well. Personally, I couldn't tell you, exactly how much better it is for the engine to have these reliefs in place, but they're common modifications that are done. Yeah, let's get into it. Here we got our pistons, and we got light. Now this was the big concern when I started inspecting. This piston there, the focus, there we go. This piston is beat up. I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but the block doesn't look bad, the head doesn't look bad. This piston is just beat to shit. Everything else pretty standard, nothing too terrible. All the bearings look pretty good. Nothing chunked apart, everything locked in the way it's supposed to be. Everything looks like it was assembled properly. There's not a ton of concerns other than that piston. But right here, got our rod, and you can see as soon as we focus, right here, there's a notch, and you can actually see where the bearing lined up right there, and I'll show you in a sec. So there's a notch right there, and when you install these bearings, there you can see the hole where oil travels through, and there is where it's set up to slide into that notch. Can't really do it wrong. And what that does is it keeps the bearing locked in place in the rod so that it's only spinning on the crankshaft. You can see where there's holes where oil travels through to keep the whole assembly oiled, keep it happy. Here we've got our crank, we've got our cam gear, crank gear. This plate, as I drop it, this plate, when you disassemble it, it can only go in one way. There's an ear here that you line up, and basically oil travels through there. Again, there's passages that allow oil to move freely place to place and keeps the whole assembly oiled. If you disassembled it wrong, you'd not be getting oil everywhere that you're supposed to, and your engine's not going to last very long. And when I was talking about relieving the engine, right here we've got flat tappets, and the cam rolls across this flat edge here at these lobes. Let me find a good, there we go. So that's going to roll across here, it pushes up a push rod, opens the valve. That's how the valve train works on an overhead valve setup on a V8. The design that I'm changing over to is called a roller cam. And basically, instead of a flat edge right here, there's going to be a bearing with a roller on it, and the cam is going to meet a rolling edge right here. And basically what that's going to do is it's just going to provide that less work be done, just to push up those rods. And then on the head side, I'm actually going to be doing a similar thing where the rockers are going to be resting on a bearing rather than on a pivot point. It's commonly done. These engines are built all day long. It's like I said, it's one of the most common builds to be done. There's nothing out of the ordinary going on here. Cheap power for an off-road rig. Probably the least impressive thing that's going to be done to this truck is going to be the engine build. We're doing Super Duty axles, 4-link setup, so the axles are going to be modified anyways. Probably going to be aiming to run 38s. I don't really need anything bigger for the type of wheeling we have here in Oregon. We have tight trails, and I see guys build trucks with 44s, but you're not going to be able to hit the trails. Even 38s, I might be a little too big there for a lot of the trails that I prefer. I'm not trying to rock bounce the thing every time I go up into the woods. I just like to crawl, hit some mud. Basically though, these pistons, trash, bearings, trash, all that's going to get thrown away. I'm ordering bigger stuff. It's getting bored out 30 over. Crank I'll use, the gear I'll use, it'll get a new double roller timing chain, new camshaft, provide more lift, like I said, going for power here. And then roller tappets rather than flat tappets. All your basic Ford V8 build stuff. That is disassembled, ready to go to the machine shop. And as soon as the parts get here, I'll be able to take it down to Portland Engine Rebuilders and have them start doing the boring on the cylinders. And it'll be time to reassemble and drop it back in the Bronco.